Good morning and welcome to Business Africa Live on BTA. I am your host, Benjamin Afre. This morning, I want to take a look at the Ghana stock market and what it takes to list, as well as the benefits of listing on the market. We'll also go around Africa and pick some business and economic related issues that we think are important for our discussions. We'll take a short break. When we are back, I'll introduce my guests to you and we'll take our discussions from there. Stay with me. Welcome back. Listen on the Ghana Stock Exchange and on any other stock market in general is something that in Africa in particular, Ghana most importantly, you have people afraid to do or are not willing to take that option. However, we believe that it's a way to raise long-term capital. So we want to take a look, some in-depth look at the stock market and what it takes to list, what are some of the benefits that accrues to the company that is willing to list, what are some of the benefits that accrues to shareholders, and then what really we stand to gain as an economy if we take that line. Today's discussion with me this morning is Charles Amoakwata, an analyst and a stockbroker. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
It's good to see you and good to have you back on the set.
Thank you.
So the stock market, what really is it at all?
The market is a platform which basically do at least two things. It gives an opportunity to companies to raise long-term capital for growth and expansion. And then at the same time, it also provides opportunity to investors to also make money out of the market. So basically, these are the two benefits that the market actually provides. And aside that too, it also have industries within, there are players which offers a job to those who play on this market, and in the long run it also generates a revenue for government. So these are some of the benefits that a stock market actually provides to a nation or a country.
So when a company decides to list, what does it mean?
What it means is that the company comes out to the public and invite the public to buy into the company. So the company sells shares, to the general public, so that the general public will be part owners of the company. Okay. And then by so doing, the company gets money to expand and to grow. And then the investors also stand up opportunity of benefiting from the growth of the company.
So for a company to list, for example, what are some of the things that is needed? What are some of the things that are required for a company to be able to list on the market?
The regulators actually have rules, for companies who actually want to list on the market. So if you come to the Ghana Stock Exchange, that is what happens in every market. So if you come to the Ghana Stock Exchange, we also have our own rules, how companies can be listed on the market. Okay. And some of them has to do with the board structure. Okay. The first point of contact is to see a sponsor or a broker who will actually do due diligence to ascertain the worthiness of the company, and then they are going to sponsor you by taking you to the regulators for approval. So when you go to a broker to sponsor you, there are certain things that they make sure that you actually qualify before they actually push you forward to the regulators for approval. And some of them actually have to do with the board structure. They have to make sure that the board is actually competent. There are right people there who can really manage the company. And then the structure also actually follows good corporate governance, structure. There is also the issue of a capitalization. You need to be able to meet a certain minimum capital, before you can be admitted on the exchange. and the other thing also has to do with the profitability of the company, or how potential the company is to be able to make profit, on the market, because the regulator don't want a company to list on the market which does not have profitability potential or which is a loss-making company. So the brokers, in their due diligence, need to look at how profitable the company has been for the past 3 or 5 years that the company has been in existence, and if they've not even been very profitable in the last 2 or 1 year, cumulatively, the law requires that the last 3 or 5 years, cumulatively, the company should be profitable. And looking forward, it should also have the potential to make more profit. And the other thing also has to do with the fact that at least 20% of the shares should be in the hands of the public. It should not be in the hands of the original shareholders. So there should be public float, which should be at least 25% And they also look at the legal aspect, to make sure that the company is legally structured, okay? Because every company should be legally structured in every country, where you need to follow the right laws to make sure that you have a legal status. So these are some of the issues that the sponsors will look at, and then once they're able to satisfy themselves that you actually fulfill all these requirements, then they can push you forward and then make sure that you get the necessary approval and then the support from the exchange to list.
Would you have to be, can you just list as a private company, or you need to go to become a public company before you can list on the market?
Yes, I think that is also one of the issues. You need to be a public company. So if you are a private company, the law requires that you change the company from a private status into a public status before you can also be listed. So it is also one of the requirements that is needed.
That's interesting. So one may ask, if I'm a company or an entrepreneur, an owner of a business, what will push me to list? What do I stand to gain by listing on the stock market?
One of the main benefits of listing on the stock market is the opportunity for you to have access to a long-term capital. Okay, because capital is one of the biggest challenges, that faces every corporate organization, whether a startup or you're already in business. Okay, you need capital, just for long-term project and then for short-term project, that's working capital and then capital expenditure. So that is one of the opportunities that the stock market actually provide companies. It is really difficult in our part of the world to get access to long-term capital from the banks. Most of the banks that we have in the country, about 26 or 27 or so, most of them are operating within the short-term loan. Okay, yeah, and a few of them are doing medium-term. You hardly find banks giving long-term loans like 10 years and beyond to a company to actually recapitalize. But if you come to the stock market, it's one of the opportunities where you can have access to a long-term capital, 10, 20, and as long as the company actually will be in existence, because when you get the funds from the public, they are investors, they are shareholders, they are part of the company. So you are not under any obligation to pay them the money they have put into the company in a year or 2 or 3. You understand? And that there's no...
It gives you a bit of time
to
work and make more money.
Exactly. It gives you time to actually turn over the capital to actually make more money. There's no pressure on you to pay anybody, just like the way the banks do. If you go and borrow money, it means that every year or every month you need to pay the interest. Okay, and the more you pay the interest, you are taking capital out of the system. So going to the capital market to list actually provides companies with this benefit of having access to long-term capital, which is free from harassment, okay, and you have the opportunity to actually turn it around over and over again to grow. And the other thing also has to do with the recognition. Once you become listed on the market, you become recognized, you get publicity, and you get exposure, okay. And once you have this exposure and the publicity, it's also one of the ways of marketing your company and its product and its also services. So these are some of the benefits that one stands to gain when you list on the capital market.
For an investor who might be interested, what benefits do they also gain?
Investors also, once you buy into a company which is listed on the stock market, you benefit from dividends.
Okay, that is
exactly. When the company makes profits, as a shareholder, you are entitled to dividends. Okay. And the other benefit has to do with capital appreciation. You have the opportunity to trade your shares on the market. If the company becomes bigger and better and is doing very well, everybody wants to be part of the company. And these are some of the things which actually affect the performance of the price of the stock on the market. So assuming you bought it at a particular price, and because the company is expanding and growing and doing better, the price actually goes up. As a shareholder, when you sell, you make a capital gain. And that is the benefit that you really get. And aside that, you also have the right to be at annual general meeting to let your voice be heard, whether a majority shareholder or minority shareholder. Even as a minority shareholder, the law gives room for you to be heard at annual general meeting when it comes to issues or matters that affect the company. And the other benefits like having access to bonus shares. Anytime the company wants to give bonus to shareholders. As a shareholder, you have access to the bonus shares, but non-shareholder does not have access to bonus shares. And there's also rights issue that anytime the company also wants to issue additional shares to the public, as a shareholder, you have the first right option before any other person is given access. So these are some of the benefits that investors also have on the market. And you also give them the opportunity to also build a long-term investment career or plan, because we have various classes of assets that one can really invest in. So the stock market also provides another class of assets for people who want to invest in any other economy.
Well, it's important that we help a lot more companies to list on the market. But is it expensive to list on the market?
It depends, but I believe that it's not expensive, okay, as compared to other alternative or other options, okay. Yeah, exactly, because most of the time, one of the challenges that face entrepreneurs to list on the market is that they have that perception that it's really expensive, okay. But I always say that on what basis are they saying that it's expensive, okay? Because per the rules, if you are listed on the market, your total cost should not be more than 5% of the total value you are really raising. So let's compare it to going to a bank to borrow, which is a short term, it's not even a long term. Okay, you have processing fees. Okay, this time around the interest rate is around average is about 30.
I think so.
Okay, 30%. Yeah. The processing fee, and then the collateral that you have to attach to all those things.
You have to pay for the registration of the collateral as well.
Exactly, the insurance. Now the loan, they require that you really insure the loan. So all these components, if you put it together, at the end of the day, I believe that listing on the capital market is really cheaper. Okay, exactly, and then you don't have the pressure of paying loan, trying to amortize it every month or every year. Okay, you have a free money to actually work for it within a long term. So I think that it's not expensive if you compare it to the other alternatives of really raising capital.
Well, we want to take a quick break. We'll be back. The tourism industry in Ghana is reported to be the fourth highest foreign exchange earner on our GDP list. We will find out what the impact, the identification, development and promotion of tourist sites in the local vicinities where they are located. We also want to talk to the various chiefs and opinion leaders in these communities to assess whether tourism is making a positive or negative impact on the lives of the local people. This is Tourism TV, fact-finding program that seeks to investigate the existing and potential tourist sites. Join me, Ralph Aite, this and every Friday on this wonderful expedition to find out what tourism is all about in Ghana.
Business Television Africa is your television network that provides you with quality programs, innovation and technology to advance the African dream and the high quality of life. On Business Television Africa, you get to hear the true stories of business people in Africa and in the world. BTA is in French.
J'aime regarder Business Television Africa.
And English. You can watch Business Television Africa via satellite or on First Digital Box.
Here are some vacancies at Elmina in the Central Region. Electrical or Electronics and Process Engineer. The purpose for this position is to oversee all activities in the Electrical, Electronic Engineering Department, including the strategic planning and implementation of new engineering practices and technologies for effective and efficient use of electricity and machinery to maximize productivity. Your duties and responsibilities will include the following: liaise with ECG on billing and fault issues to ensure good power intake and efficient power usage. Installation of new electrical or electronic equipment and machinery to standard. Planning all electrical maintenance schedules, both breakdown and preventive maintenance, to ensure minimal downtime on extruders, thermoformers, reclaimed shape molding machines, and other production equipment. Programming of AC and DC speed drives, programmable logic controls (PLCs), controllers and other programmable devices on extruders and thermoformers, and liaise with the production department to ensure smooth and efficient operation of machinery, among others. For the qualifications, a candidate must obtain a bachelor's degree in electrical or electronic engineering with a minimum of 10 years working experience. Candidates for the position must have a good educational background and extensive working experience in the polystyrene and/or polypropylene manufacturing industry. Note: interested candidates should contact Eric Assign on telephone number 0501278159 or send a curriculum vitae to eric.assign@ggfcghana.com for consideration. Job title: Mechanical Engineering Maintenance Manager. The main responsibility is to ensure that mechanically production equipment is in good working condition, which should be able to turn out good products. These include the following duties: mechanical troubleshooting on production equipment, extruders, thermoformers, shape molding machines, compressors, and other equipment. Planning maintenance schedules on production equipment. Planning and supervising machine repairs and modification. Installation of new equipment, and the design and fabrication and repairs of all product molds, among others. For the qualification and experience, candidates for the position must have at least City and Guilds Part 2 in mechanical engineering or its equivalent educational background with a minimum of 15 years working experience as a mechanical engineer with a reputable manufacturing company. The person must be comfortable maintaining air compressors, cooling chiller, cooling tower, high-pressure gas pump, low-pressure gas pumps, steam generation, hydraulics and pneumatics, preparing maintenance budgets, and any other mechanical works. Candidates must also be able to manage at least 10 subordinates. Note: interested candidates should contact Eric Assign on telephone number 0501 278 159, 0501 278 159, or send a CV to eric.assign@ggfcghana.com. eric.assign@ggfcghana.com.
Welcome back. So we're talking about listing on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Do we have just one market? Is it that we can list, or there are several markets we can list in terms of the Ghana Stock Exchange?
For now, we have two markets up until last year, when the Ghana Stock Exchange, together with the players of the industry, decided to set up an alternative market to look at one segment of the market, that is SMEs and then startups, to give them the opportunity to also list on the market, because the investigation and the research also proved that there's this perception out there that it's really expensive to list on the market, and then the rules are also too cumbersome. So, and then it's also expensive to also list. So, because of this, the exchange actually, together with the brokers, came up with this alternative market, which is called the Ghana Alternative Exchange, which is GAX, and it is to target SMEs and then startups. And the rules are a little bit to suit this, segment of the market. One of the rules to list on the market, the normal market, is to have, I think, about a minimum capital of about $500,000 Ghana cedis. So in order to encourage more SMEs to be able to list on the market, they brought it down to about 250,000 Ghana cedis. And the other thing also has to do with the fact that they've also set up a fund to help potential companies to also list. So if you're a potential company and then you want to list on the market, you can borrow from this fund for your expenses.
The listing support fund.
Exactly, the listing support fund. So that you borrow from this fund to take care of your expenses. And then after you have listed, then you reimburse the exchange for the money that they borrowed you. This is to help to deal with the perception and then the issue of the fact that it is expensive to really list on the market. And the other also factor has to do with the fact that you don't have to have been in existence for over 5 years, okay? A year or 2 or 3, okay, with a potential, of making profit. And even if you're a startup and you have a business plan, which is shows that you can be a very profitable company, they will also give you the opportunity to really, list on the market. So that is what the alternative exchange is to help to do.
So you really, in your experience, in your research, what could be accounting for the low number of companies that are listed on our market? You talk about the perception of the expensive, but are there any reasons why, apart from the expenses, are there any reason why potentially that is preventing companies from listing on the market?
Research has actually proven that there are a number of factors which is preventing entrepreneurs from actually listing their companies on the market. And one of the factors has to do with the fact that it's an African culture, or let me say a Ghanaian culture, where they don't want to open up for other people to know what is happening in their company. If you want to list on the market, the rules require that you report on regular basis. Okay, you follow good accounting and auditing practices. The board structure should not be a family governance. It should be corporate governance. So if it is a family business, you are not going to run it like a family. It's supposed to be corporate governance. So there's so much openness about listing on the market, and some of these entrepreneurs are actually shy off from letting outsiders know what is happening in their company, and they don't want to share the profit. They think that they should share it alone. So it's really one of the factors. And the other thing has to do with the fact that there's this culture of not thinking big. So when they come to the market, they have the opportunity to grow and to expand when you talk to them, but they always prefer to remain small as they are. You understand? I think this is also a Ghanaian problem, because if you look at our counterparts, like Nigeria, a lot of Nigerian companies are all over West Africa and even going beyond Africa. If you go to South Africa, you have a lot of South African companies in the banking industry and in the retail industry, in the mining industry. They are all having branches outside South Africa, within the Southern African community. Some of them have even come to West Africa. Okay, but if you come to Ghana, how many Ghanaian companies are actually outside Ghana? With a few of Zoom Lion and then UT Bank and then others who are trying to, and Kasapreko, who are trying to go beyond the shores of Ghana, because they have decided to think big and to dream big and to grow bigger. Okay, the rest, they always want to remain as they are. and that is also one of the factors that is preventing them from, listening on the market. If our entrepreneurs begin to think big, to grow big and to become big, the only opportunity to do that is to come to the market to raise capital for you to be able to, expand.
Yeah. I actually sometimes also think that it is not even just a matter of raising capital, but it's a form of giving back to society so that people can partake in the profits that you make. We have quite a number of very big institutions in the country whose thinking might not really conform to the normal Ghanaian thinking. Companies like the Barclays, MTN, those are big companies. What could be preventing them from listening to the market?
I think this is an issue which has been discussed on a national level on various occasions, that some of these multinationals, need to list on our market to help Ghanaians also benefit from the profit that we give them. The likes of the MTNs, the telcos, and some of these
You don't have even a single telco listed on the market.
And then some of these oil companies. These are companies which are really making big money. The telco industry is one of the areas that is very lucrative and profitable, but not a single of them is listed on our market. So I think that, just as you said, that as part of social corporate responsibility and also helping the people within the society to also benefit from the profit that they're really making, they need to list on the market. Once they list, it will not only help Ghanaians, the government will also stand the chance, of also, benefiting. And then the market will also be very liquid and then active, because if you have good companies listed on the market, they also help to promote the market, to make the market more vibrant and then more active. So I think that we need to go beyond the talking and the discussion, and then try to come up with policies to make sure that these multinationals actually list on our market locally, to make sure that our Ghanaians actually benefit. The issue of local content.
So that means you would be in agreement with the SCC boss, for example, who is pushing that, especially other multinational companies should list part of their companies on the exchange. You'll be in agreement with him.
I agree with him perfectly, and I think that they should keep on talking to government and then other parties, to really make sure that this issue actually comes to fruition, because the issue of local content is very important. The people in the land need to benefit from some of these companies. We can't help them to make profit, and then at the end of the day, they take all the profit outside the country. And if you look at the new trend, on the continent of Africa, I think that governments are beginning to take it very seriously. And even in South Africa, in recent news, I've heard that, their mineral laws, they have reviewed it to make it a point that the 20%, of the minerals that are actually mined will be processed in the country. And then there's this issue of trying to own part of it. Zimbabwe is doing it, although sometimes too extreme. But I think if we should use the right, laws and procedures to do it, in order not to harm the relationship between us and some of these companies, we should use the right procedure, negotiation and persuasion, and then the laws to come to agreement with them, so that the government will own part of these companies, they will list part on the stock market, and there will be value addition. There will be programs to make sure that when some of these resources are mined out of our land, especially when it comes to the oil companies and then the mining companies, there will be value chain companies in place to make sure that a portion of these raw materials are actually processed within, to add value to it, to help us to also increase our revenue, to deal with some of these revenue shortfalls that our government have been really facing for some time.
So will you be calling for example, maybe that the government should give all of these companies maybe some time period say, between now and the next 3 years to prepare to list either all or part of their companies on the market? Would you push for such, in quotes, drastic laws?
I think that negotiation is very important. We should not actually behave like a dictatorial sort of thing. So once there is negotiation, there will definitely be an understanding, and then the way forward. Okay, because we want the best for them. We also want the best for ourselves, and they also say that they also want the best for us. So in the interest of the public and going forward, we should have a discussion with stakeholders and then have a plan. Okay, just as you said, 2 or 5 year plan, to come up with policies and programs. Okay, in consultation with these companies, of course. Okay, to make sure that we use the right laws. Okay, to encourage this kind of new phenomenon, because we are in the 21st century. Things have changed. Okay, and most of our laws, the mining laws, the oil laws, those were the days when we made these laws to attract these companies to come. Okay, and time, has passed. Things have changed. So this issue of tax holidays and the tax exemptions and, giving them that kind of laxity to do whatever they want, they must, understand that things have changed. Now, African countries are trying to be on their own. Donors are now really not bringing the monies any longer. So we need to generate money from within ourselves. So it's time we begin to review some of these laws and then begin to strengthen our negotiation skills. Okay, so that we can always negotiate better for our people, rather than going, allowing them to push everything on us and then thinking that whatever they give us is the best. If it is not in our best interest, it's time for us to sit down and then think about ourselves and posterity, what is best for them, and then we work on it.
Well, so what would be your final advice then to companies that are potentially considering your advice to list? What would be your advice to them?
I think that listing on the stock market has actually proven beneficial to a lot of companies. Okay, billions of cedis have been raised on the Ghana capital market since its inception in 1990. Companies have actually come on the market to raise money. They have grown and expanded and become bigger. So there's that kind of benefit. They have also become more popular. They have that kind of recognition. Okay, so I think that it's time that companies which have not listed begin to look at the Ghana stock market. Okay, it is cheaper and it is easier, to list on the market and to raise money for their expansion activities.
It is cheaper to raise long-term capital on the stock market. We'll take our final break. When we come back, we'll look at other business happenings across the African continent.
Here are some vacancies at Elmina in the Central Region. Electrical or electronics and process engineer. The purpose for this position is to oversee all activities in the electrical, electronic engineering department, including the strategic planning and implementation of new engineering practices and technologies for effective and efficient use of electricity and machinery to maximize productivity. Your duties and responsibilities will include the following: liaise with ECG on billing and fault issues to ensure good power intake and efficient power usage, installation of new electrical or electronic equipment and machinery to standard, planning all electrical maintenance schedules, both breakdown and preventive maintenance, to ensure minimal downtime on extruders, thermoformers, reclaimed shape molding machines, and other production equipment. Programming of AC and DC speed drives, programmable logic controls (PLCs), controllers and other programmable devices on extruders and thermoformers, and liaise with the production department to ensure smooth and efficient operation of machinery, among others. For the qualifications, a candidate must obtain a bachelor's degree in electrical or electronic engineering with a minimum of 10 years working experience. Candidates for the position must have a good educational background and extensive working experience in the polystyrene and/or polypropylene manufacturing industry. Note: Interested candidates should contact Eric Assign on telephone number 0501278159 or send a curriculum vitae to eric.assign@ggfcghana.com for consideration. Job title: Mechanical Engineering Maintenance Manager. The main responsibility is to ensure that mechanically production equipment is in good working condition, which should be able to turn out good products. These include the following duties: mechanical troubleshooting on production equipment, extruders, thermoformers, shape molding machines, compressors, and other equipment. Planning maintenance schedules on production equipment. Planning and supervising machine repairs and modification. Installation of new equipment and the design and fabrication and repairs of all product molds, among others. For the qualification and experience, candidates for the position must have at least City and Guilds Part 2 in mechanical engineering or its equivalent educational background with a minimum of 15 years working experience as a mechanical engineer with a reputable manufacturing company. The person must be comfortable maintaining air compressors, cooling chiller, cooling tower, high pressure gas pump, low pressure gas pumps, steam generation, hydraulics and pneumatics, preparing maintenance budgets, and any other mechanical works. Candidates must also be able to manage at least 10 subordinates. Note: interested candidates should contact Eric Assign on telephone number 0501 278 159, 0501 278 159, or send a CV to eric.assign@ggfcghana.com. eric.assign@ggfcghana.com.
The tourism industry in Ghana is reported to be the 4th highest foreign exchange earner on our GDP list. We will find out what the impact, the identification, development and promotion of tourist sites in the local vicinities where they are located. We also want to talk to the various chiefs and opinion leaders in these communities to assess whether tourism is making a positive or negative impact on the lives of the local people. This is Tourism TV, fact-finding program that seeks to investigate the existing and potential tourist sites. Join me, Ralph Aike, this and every Friday on this wonderful expedition to find out what tourism is all about in Ghana.
Welcome back. Charles, let's take a look at other African countries and what is happening there. But let's start from Ghana. Last week during the Ghana Economic Forum, Professor Dodonunu mentioned that there are quite some huge leakages in public financing, close to as high as about 1.2 billion cedis annually. That is quite scary. But then I ask, what could be causing that? What potentially is leading to these leakages?
I think he was referring to the Auditor General's report. As a country, every year we have an audit by the Auditor General because they are mandated to audit government expenditure. And I think, to me, this is not a surprise because we've been having these audit reports over a number of years now, and every year when they release their report, there are instances of leakages, other some financial misappropriation, embezzlement, corruption, and other ways of wasting money. Okay, but at the end of the day, we don't see any action. I've never seen anybody prosecuted, or I've never heard a stand to be corrected, being prosecuted out of the audit report. Okay, it always come, and then we talk about it. Even Parliament, has a committee which look at some of these reports. Okay, I mean, recent times, they look at some of these things, and there were very strange issues which really came up. But what has come of it? So leakages in our financial system is an issue that I think is really worrying us as a country. And I think the earlier we look at it, the better. If you look at the figure, 1.2 billion, it could have really done something for us. It's really equivalent to the $700 million that the finance minister was saying that was a grant that donors did not release for the past 2 years. Okay, and for that matter, it affected our budget. And we have this huge budget, deficit over 10%, in 2013. The finance minister was saying that $700 million did not come. But based on this report, we are saying 1.2 billion. So you can see, exactly, so you can see, how this leakage is actually affecting our revenue.
It means you can directly relate it to the fact that these leakages are the reasons why the donors refuse to bring the $700 million that the finance minister is talking about.
Yeah, I think if you read about some of the reasons why they gave, okay, it can be attributed to some of these things because some of the MDA did not really meet their target. Okay, there are certain things that they expect them to do before the funds are released. And if you are not able to put those things in place, definitely they will not really release them. So they look at the financial administration, how government is really spending money, and then how money is being used in the country. And in their interest, if they think that it's not being used in the best interest of the people, there's no way they will waste their hard-earned money. Because the money they are giving to us is also from taxpayers in their country. So they can't afford to take such money from their people and bring it to you to use it for the benefit of your people. But at the end of the day, you waste it. You allow it to go to private pockets instead of going to the public pocket to really help the people which they intend to help.
But you see, thinking along those lines and what decisions you're making, for example, do you think we need to keep borrowing money? Are we unable to raise our own, even if we need to borrow, maybe just a little to top up? But it seems we are overly dependent on these loans or these grants and that. So when they don't come, then we find ourselves in a very, very terrible mess.
I think this has been a debate whether to borrow or not to borrow. But I think that borrowing is not bad. It has always been said, and I support that view. But it's about how
you utilize the funds, yeah.
Actually use the money, because sometimes you may not be able to raise all the money that you want yourself. Okay, and those of us who really operate in the private sector and then helping companies to raise money, we understand this. Okay, that you can really borrow money and then use it well to expand and to grow and be able to repay it back. And so the issue has not been whether to borrow or not to borrow, but how we really use the money. And I was very happy when the government read the budget for 2014, and then they've come up with a program to make sure that they when they borrow, they are going to use it to finance capital projects that can repay itself. Okay, and that is the only way we'll be able to make very good use of monies that we really borrow. And we have very good capital projects that the government is really embarking on with this, gas projects that we are still waiting for the money, the railway, projects, and there are other, projects in line when it comes to the energy sector. These are areas that when government spend money, they will be able to repay for themselves. Okay, because they will really help the economy to grow. So I believe that what we should look at is how to use the money well to actually help the economy grow and to expand and be able to also pay it back, so that at the end of it all, it will not be a burden to us, but it will rather be a blessing.
So what can we do then to stop or seal these leakages?
I think that since for about 4 or 3 years now, we have seen some reforms in our revenue generation sector. Now we have the GRA. Okay, it used to be separate. We had the SEPS, we had the internal revenue, but now all of them have been brought together under one umbrella, which is the Ghana Revenue Authority, and they had the various divisions. One of the purposes of doing that was to, streamline how we collect revenue in our country, to reduce some of these leakages, and a lot of tax reforms are also being introduced, to ensure that we make the best, out of our tax laws. So already we've seen some progress and some effort being made in that direction. The other aspect that I would also like to see has to do with making best use of reports that come out of our audits, okay? So that if any report come and we see that some money have not been used the way it's supposed to be used, people have to answer. And I think that our leaders need to crack the whip so that they make sure that if money is not used in the right way, we really bring the people to book. That way, it will serve as a deterrence, okay, to people, and then we will get best out of our revenue, because we really need revenue for development.
We really need revenue for the government and for development. Now, at the same forum, you had the finance minister again proposing that maybe we should set up a new development bank, because to him, NIB has failed. NIB, the National Investment Bank, was set up to help industrialization over 50 years ago. Now, I keep asking, is it really setting up a new development bank that we need? Or everything of probably what NIB should be doing, a restructuring of the company? What really is the situation? And is forming a new bank the solution?
I also read about the report which came out of the forum. And the reason the finance minister was attributing to this idea was that NIB has failed. And the question I asked myself is that, so is the solution to set up a new bank if NIB has failed to actually live up to expectation? I think that the solution is not to set up a new bank. I believe that if you set up an institution to perform a function and then they fail or they don't live up to expectation, there need to be restructuring. There need to be a review to find out why they are not living up to expectation, and then try to refocus them. If along the line they have gone off, try to bring them back, and then whatever support that they need to make sure that they live up to expectation, you do that. Because if you leave them and then you go and set up a new bank and they don't also live up to expectation, do you also go on and then set up a new bank? So at what point in time, do you end it? So I think that there is a need for serious investigation, okay, and then restructuring of NIB to live up to its expectation. And earlier on in our discussion, we said that most of the banks in the country provide short-term loan and few of them medium-term loan. Hardly do you find a bank providing long-term goal to provide a long-term capital to an institution, let's say for 10 years and beyond. You understand? So if NIB was supposed to do that, but they are not doing it, I think it's time that government needs to prompt them and then restructure them and provide them the necessary support that they need, so that they'll be back on their feet to do what we all expect them to do, to move the nation in the direction that we want.
So setting up a new bank is not a solution.
So even the money that we need to set up the new bank, we can add it to them, we can recapitalize them, and then refocus them so that they can really deliver on their mandate.
In Nigeria, you have inflation dropping to 7.7, about 0.3% drop on the previous results. Now, it's mainly attributed to a drop in food inflation. Is it good for the economy, for Nigerian economy?
I think that it is good, okay, because inflation at a certain level, okay, is good to promote economic growth. At a certain level, it causes a lot of harm. And in Africa, inflation actually is pegged to interest rates. Okay, and in a situation where inflation is going up, you need to adjust interest rate up. Yeah. And when you increase interest rates, you crowd out the private sector. And when the private sector is crowded out, definitely there will not be growth and then development. So when inflation is actually coming down, I think that it is very good for every economy, so that interest rate can also come down for the private sector to be able to borrow money to grow and then develop. So I think that it is a good trend that inflation has come down, and I believe that it will have the necessary impact that it's supposed to really have on the economy. But that notwithstanding, there are still some challenges, within the economy. They are still facing the depreciation of currency. The naira, is not doing very well. Now it's depreciated around 2%. You understand, and public debt is also still going up. Although Nigeria debt to GDP ratio is one of the best in the continent. Okay, but when you begin to see a trend rising, it means you have to be very, very careful. And then the stock market is still also in the negative zone. So there are still challenges in the economy. So in a situation where you begin to see one positive trend, then it's encouraging.
We have interest rates going up by close to 60% because of the scarcity of funds. What does this do to the economy? What does it do to, startup businesses?
Yes, the issue of interest rate has to also do with the liquidity in the market. For some time now, the Nigeria has been experiencing capital flight. Okay, with the issue of the suspension of the central bank governor, Sanusi, and then the effect of tapering in US. Okay, Nigeria is considered to be one of the emerging markets in Africa, so it has a lot of connection with the developed world. So whenever there's anything happening in the developed world, they have their implication on some of these economies. So since the year actually started, we've seen some capital flight out of Nigeria. Investors are actually drawing money from the bond market and then from the stock market. Yeah. And this has actually attributed to the fall in the naira, okay, and then this issue of liquidity problem. So I believe that as time goes on, this issue will really normalize, and then the economy will begin to pick up.
But at the same time, you also, as you mentioned, you have the Aosha index also down as of last week. It was down by 2%. Would you still? And I think the trend has been continuous for like 3 weeks now. Do you foresee a continuation of the trend, or is it a normal situation in the Nigerian stock market?
I think that no situation is permanent. Okay, so in every economy, at any point in time, there seems to be imbalances within the economy. So it is up to the managers of the economy to make sure that they come up with policies and strategies to normalize that situation. So in the short term, I think that this problem is really going to be with them. Okay, because since the year actually began, the naira is in negative. The stock market is in negative. Debt to GDP ratio is rising, although the limit is within acceptable limit. There is an issue of capital flight out of Nigeria, with the issue of tapering in in the US, and then with the suspension of the central bank governor, which had effect on their economy. So I think that this is a challenge that every economy goes through once in a while. But it is up to the managers of the economy to put in programs and strategies to help minimize the situation. And I believe that as time goes on, they'll be able to put things in order to actually stabilize situations to help the economy move forward.
In Kenya, the central bank is looking to mop up as much as 6 billion shillings from the market. Why would they want to do that, and what would be the impact of this on the economy?
I think that one of the reasons for any central bank to mop up excess liquidity in the market is to control interest, is control inflation, okay, and then depreciation of its currency. In a situation where you find yourself, you find your currency under pressure, okay, the idea is that there's a lot of money in the system. So there's the need for money to be withdrawn from the system, okay, so that inflation will come down and then the pressure on the currency will also reduce. If you look at how the shilling has actually performed since the year began, it has not performed as well as Ghana. I think it's fairly good, okay. It's made just some points, of depreciation against, the dollar. But that notwithstanding, I think the government feels that, or the central bank feels that they have an inflation target for the year. Okay, so if they see any threat to the inflation and the depreciation of their currency, there's the need for the central bank to come in to make sure that the inflation is actually brought within the acceptable limit to help, bring about the growth that they expect, within the economy. So it's an issue of growth and the stabilization of your currency. Okay, so if you want to actually promote growth, then you make sure that the interest rate and inflation is at a certain level where people can really borrow to expand their businesses.
Still in Kenya, you have a decline, an expected decline in the cost of borrowing. The commercial banks are predicting that they will see more growth in the economy. They are seeing more stability, and so they think, or they are projecting, that there will be a decline in the cost of borrowing. What effect would this have? A continuous decline in the cost of borrowing. What effect would it have on the country, its economy? But at the same time, what effect could this also have, positive or negative, on the commercial banks?
I think that when the rates come down, the better for businesses, because it provides them the opportunity to borrow at a cheaper cost, to be able to do their businesses and then grow. And I believe that that is the strategy of the government, because they have a growth target for the year. And it is the responsibility of the government and then the central bank to make sure that our rates are within acceptable limit so that companies can really borrow, to grow. So I believe that this is actually coming out from the trend. People are expecting the central bank to actually bring down the policy rate, okay? And when the policy rate comes down, it will also affect commercial banks to bring their lending rate down so that businesses can also borrow and then grow their businesses. So I think that is a positive thing, to the economy. If that is the trend or the expectation that analysts are really expecting, I think that is positive.
So we should see some boosts in Kenya's economy.
Exactly. That is what I expect. That once the rate comes down, okay, it should provide that opportunity for businesses to be able to borrow at a cheaper cost so that they can do, their businesses. Cost of business, doing business will come down.
Well, thank you, Charles. Thank you for being with us this morning. And so that has been our show for this morning. And I've been your host on Business Africa Live on BTA, Benjamin Afre.
Here are some vacancies at Elmina in the Central Region. Electrical or electronics and process engineer. The purpose for this position is to oversee all activities in the electrical, electronic engineering department, including the strategic planning and implementation of new engineering practices and technologies for effective and efficient use of electricity and machinery to maximize productivity. Your duties and responsibilities will include the following: liaise with ECG on billing and fault issues to ensure good power intake and efficient power usage, installation of new electrical or electronic equipment and machinery to standard, planning all electrical maintenance schedules, both breakdown and preventive maintenance, to ensure minimal downtime on extruders, thermoformers, reclaimed shape molding machines, and other production equipment. Programming of AC and DC speed drives, programmable logic controls (PLCs), controllers, and other programmable devices on extruders and thermoformers. and liaise with the production department to ensure smooth and efficient operation of machinery, among others. For the qualifications, a candidate must obtain a bachelor's degree in electrical or electronic engineering with a minimum of 10 years working experience. Candidates for the position must have a good educational background and extensive working experience in the polystyrene and/or polypropylene manufacturing industry. Note: interested candidates should contact Eric Assign on telephone number 0501278159 or send a curriculum vitae to eric.assign@ggfcghana.com for consideration. Job title: Mechanical Engineering Maintenance Manager. The main responsibility is to ensure that mechanically production equipment is in good working condition, which should be able to turn out good products. These include the following duties: mechanical troubleshooting on production equipment, extruders, thermoformers, shape molding machines, compressors, and other equipment. Planning maintenance schedules on production equipment, planning and supervising machine repairs and modification, installation of new equipment, and the design and fabrication and repairs of all product molds, among others. For the qualification and experience, candidates for the position must have at least City and Guilds Part 2 in mechanical engineering or its equivalent educational background with a minimum of 15 years working experience as a mechanical engineer with a reputable manufacturing company. The person must be comfortable maintaining air compressors, cooling chiller, cooling tower, high-pressure gas pump, low-pressure gas pumps, steam generation, hydraulics and pneumatics, preparing maintenance budgets, and any other mechanical works. Candidates must also be able to manage at least 10 subordinates. Note: interested candidates should contact Eric Assign on telephone number 0501 278 159, 0501 278 159, or send a CV to eric.assign@ggfcghana.com, eric.assign@ggfcghana.com.